Well, hello there, everybody. Mic check 1, 2. This thing on? This works? I think so. Welcome back to Hail Yes, the Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. Been almost 2 months since we last came to you on these here airwaves, but fear not, we've been in the lab, grinding, perfecting our craft, honing our skills, or, just taking it easy for the summer. One of these things is true, but either way, I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan football and basketball writer for the Free Press. I'm joined, as always, by my friends and colleagues, like the venerable Reiner Sabin, our Big Ten insider, who, as soon as we are done with this, will be heading down to Indianapolis. Is that right? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Yeah, headed down to Indy this afternoon. Going to do Michigan State Wednesday and then Michigan on Thursday.
It's double dip season again. Although your double dip season is really two schools. I call double dip season the football, basketball overlap.
Yes, you're right. That's very tough. That's ridiculous. I mean, when those two things are, especially if they're both competitive, So
yeah, they might be this year. I don't know about both sports.
Michigan's intriguing, though. Michigan's intriguing. You know, if they're going to be good, but they'll definitely be interested with the new coach. So.
No, it will be a much more interesting Michigan basketball this season. I think that feels safe to say. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, not to be outdone, we have our producer, our editor, man who's wearing more hats than that these days as we shift around our staff. But he's my friend and yours, Andrew, not Andy Burkle.
What's up, fellas? How long does it feel like you guys were gone for a longer time than this with the podcast? It feels like it was more than 2 months to me, but I was looking at, I think it was like May 21st is the last time we were on here, but it feels like it's been an eternity. So I guess that's good and bad.
Yeah, not to me. This summer went way too fast.
I agree with that. Faster than I would have thought.
Yeah,
when you looked up July.
I know, and not just July right now. July 23rd. Yeah. I mean, we are. You're leaving for Indy in like 2 hours. I mean, we're there. We're almost back, but we don't want to get. We could. I mean, obviously, as Andrew just said, it's been 2 months. We could just jam the show, right? We could get into the nitty gritty of the offseason and break down the projected two deeps on the depth chart, map out the wins and losses, but it is still July 23rd. We got like 40 days until Michigan takes the field. So there's time to get into all of that. So instead, what we wanted to do before this break, just a little summer recap. Reiner and I, we both caught up with a few different players over the past couple weeks. So just maybe a little bit of insight on those discussions. And then Michigan, busy recruiting month in June. Talk about that, a name or two from that stretch. Again, we don't need to go crazy here. And then after the break, Reiner and I both voted on the USA Today Big Ten media poll. And so where does Michigan fit into the new look league? Obviously, 3-time defending champions. Do I hear 4? We'll make those picks on the other end. But first things first, Reiner, the people come here. They like Michigan football. They want to know about your summer. So very quickly, I just want to hear the number one thing you did this summer.
We went out to the Pacific Northwest, to Portland and Seattle, which is awesome. And we went over to Cannon Beach. That was the final scene in The Goonies that everybody kind of remembers, where the pirate ship goes out in the ocean. Well, that's where they filmed it, and that was pretty cool to go see. And then, going, through Oregon. Oregon's an amazing state, and then which I'd never been to, and then. I've been to Washington several times, but Seattle's pretty awesome too. So it was a great time of year to go, and I had a really good time out there. How about you?
Even when this man is on vacation, he's actually just doing reconnaissance on the new teams. He was stopping by Seattle. There was some sailgating, I'm sure. Yeah. Swing by Eugene. You hit up Nike headquarters at all? I know you and Phil.
We were actually in Beaverton, but we didn't actually go to Nike.
Oh, you were going to Corvallis. Yeah. Is that right? You were hitting up Jonathan Smith's old stomping grounds.
No, actually, I saw the Oregon State basketball coach in the Portland airport. We were walking by. It was so random.
Who is Oregon State basketball coach?
I can't remember his name.
I was going to say,
how'd you know who it was?
Because I've seen him before. I mean,
I could not pick him out of a crowd. No chance.
No, I don't know this. I don't know a name. I couldn't.
My cousin goes to Oregon State.
Yeah, Wayne Tinkle. Yeah. I've seen. Yeah, he walked by. He was, he was wearing the beard. I was like, oh yeah, that was the Oregon State, coach. We were walking by, and so it was just, and they were like, oh, okay. I was like, but it was interesting to be out there. Portland and Seattle are really, really cool places. I've heard obviously it's a little different in the winter time. It's just rainy and wet all the time and pretty dreary, but that time of year it's great.
Yeah, but you went exactly during the right time. I did not go to my vacation on the right time. Chose mid or it was late June, early July, something like that, and we went to the Arizona and Las Vegas. So it was a smooth 110 pretty much the whole time. But we did go to the Grand Canyon. It was my mom's, it's crazy to say it out loud, 70th birthday, 7-0 for my mom. So, and as all 70-year-old women do, they want to go hike the Grand Canyon. So that's what we did. We rode mules, my sister and I, and uncles, aunts, and stuff. And that was fun. Rode around the rim of the Grand Canyon, then drove up to Vegas. And I mean, I'm a gambler. I'm a nightlife person. So Vegas is kind of my speed. I have no idea what my family was doing in Vegas. I mean, they've never stepped foot in a casino. They'll drink like a drink or two, but they're not really much with the party life. But still had a great time. Went to Cirque du Soleil, like some Michael Jackson stuff, Hoover Dam on the drive. So good stuff. Family time. Just what the summer's meant for, right, Andrew?
Yeah, well, sounds like you guys had a nice summer.
I was going to say, Andrew's been grinding.
My summer, maybe that's why my summer felt like it went by slower than yours, because it's been a lot of work. My grandpa passed away, so that was not the greatest thing in the world. I've been thinking about him a lot, so it's not been the greatest summer, but I'm ready. Honestly, that's why I'm kind of excited football season is here, even though I'm literally the number one fan of summer. I'll rank summer over fall. It's my favorite season. It's just been one of those years. So glad to turn the page to football season here.
Well, we are sorry about that, but
it's what it is, right?
No, it's good. Hey, I mean, maybe this isn't. I don't know if this podcast is even the place for it, but when I hear someone our age talk about their grandpa passing away, I mean, of course, my first thing is how sad I am. But man, how lucky you are, right?
For 100%.
That's a lot of good time. That's a lot of good time.
For sure.
So. And then some other things we did this summer, Reiner. There was Andrew wasn't the only one working. We got into it a little bit here and there. I want to start with your piece on Quentin Johnson, who, I mean, I think it's safe to say, I think you hit the nail on the head with the sentence. Is he the forgotten man in this secondary? Is he going to be a key piece this year? I know that was kind of a hard turn, but that was the other half of this summer conversation. These guys who we caught up with this summer.
Yeah, I think he could be a forgotten man just because, again, people kind of lost sight of, where he was, his status as far as coming back versus going in the NFL. He had declared and looked like he was leaving with everybody else that was part of that championship team. So, it would have been a, pretty significant loss just because he played like 40 snaps against Alabama and was probably going to play a lot of snaps against Washington in the championship game. But right before that, the practice before they left for Houston that morning, he basically tore his hamstring when he fell awkwardly trying to go up for a pass or whatever in the practice. And so he tried to rehab it and get back. He got back on. He went on the field for one snap. I mean, it was basically just a kind of a ceremonial snap, and then, but then he was going to try to go through the pre-draft process and hoped it would heal. But then he got some special exemption waiver to basically pull himself out of the draft, and came back and wasn't really allowed to. He wasn't really part of the team per se because he wasn't enrolled in the university, but then had to. So he's re-enrolling for the summer, and fall. So he's going to be back on the team. And I think, it's a key piece. I mean, he had some big plays. And obviously, everybody remembers the big hit on Ibuka in the Ohio State game. And he also stripped Jalen Milroe and the fumble that didn't turn out to be that consequential.
It's an underrated play.
Yeah,
it's an underrated play.
Yeah, but I mean, he's definitely one of those kind of guys that kind of shows out when he gets his opportunity. They threw him in against Bowling Green in a very nip and tuck contest in the first half, and he got an interception right off the bat in that game, and kind of was able to turn a little bit of the tide as far as that game is concerned too. So I mean, like, this guy is a person who comes up and makes big plays, and I just think probably people have forgotten about what kind of impact he can make.
Yeah, and then when you have Keon Sabb leaving, when you have Rod Moore, who it sounds like,
right,
I mean, will be out for at least the first half of the year, that safety depth is huge, right? And of course, they did go on sort of a defensive back flurry this offseason. They added 4 defensive backs in 72 hours. Cornerback Amir Hall from Albany, which is an FCS school, but he was an All-American there. Got Ricky Johnson from UNLV, and then the safeties, Wesley Walker from Tennessee and Jaden Mangum from Michigan State. A ton of experience across the board for all 4 of the guys. And then I think that's maybe why Quentin Johnson is. I mean, he was not a staple, right, in this last era. I mean, he was a good piece. He was a good depth piece, but he kind of came into his own. Like, I mean, a la Mike Barrett, right? But to a lesser degree, and even later, like sort of one of those later developers. But I think you could be right. I expect him to start next to Macari, maybe against Fresno State. Do you think?
I think it's possible for sure, and I think supposedly he's back to close to full health, and I think his knowledge of the defense is going to be the key factor for him, probably being a kind of ahead on the depth chart as opposed to those other 2 transfers, especially Mangum. I think Mangum might take a little bit before he kind of transitions. Also, he needs to again fill out. I mean, that was the question when he was at Michigan State. He was kind of, he's kind of. I think his Twitter profile is like Slender Man. I mean, that's really true. I mean, he's very slender. I mean, and so I think, playing in the box, I mean, that's what Quentin Johnson does. I mean, Quentin Johnson can play down at the nickel position.
Jaden Mangum is really built like a free safety.
Yeah, and Quentin Johnson's got a little bit more bulk on him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. But you've seen I mean, I'm not comparing anyone to Mikey Sanders still, but you don't need size to play necessarily if you have, I guess, elite skills like Mikey to play in the slot, that nickel slot spot on defense. But time will tell. And then I guess I will get into a little bit my conversation with Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Sat down with them last week and got something coming out. Still timing it, still trying to work on talking to a few more people. It'll probably be late next week. But these guys are ready to rock. I mean, no surprise there, right? But it's very interesting. Here's something that I will share from the story. And so if you listen to Hail Yes, you'll get this before the story. You better believe teams were talking to these two during this offseason, trying to poach them. Absolutely. They didn't want to, I mean, it's kind of a delicate situation, right? Because like you don't want to get too much into it. But I asked KG, I asked both of them, and KG is really the one who I was talking about it with, and he was nodding along with me. He was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "So if I'm thinking of a school in my head, they contacted you?" He said, "Yep." I was like, "All of them?" He said, "All of them." I was like, "Wow." So so you can fill in the blanks, right? So there was a push from the outside to somewhat derail this, and neither of them said this explicitly. I was trying to get it, but I don't think this is a stretch to take their sentiment to this place. I mean, Mason said, he's like, I mean, what Mason did say is like, I mean, we all love each other here. Like, it really is a brotherhood, and but like, we just didn't want to leave. What I think it was is, I mean, there was a lot of enticing offers to these guys. Nobody wanted to leave first. nobody wanted to be the dude to be like, yeah, I'm going to go chase the bag. I mean, I guess sure, Keon Sabb did go right to Alabama, and he was probably the biggest loss of this offseason. Then you got Reese Atterbury and other like depth pieces like that. But I'm talking staples of this team: Colston, Rod, KG, Mason, Donovan, those guys. And so I think I don't think it's. I mean, obviously, it's not nothing that they all returned, but that they all know that they returned, right? I think. Well, I guess we'll get into this. This might be a good segue. I mean, when I was picking Michigan where to finish in the league this year, I mean, I could see them surprising a lot of people in the positive direction, but then again, there was just so much they lost. What if it all unraveled, like all goes the other way? You know what I mean? Like I could see an extreme on either end where I could see a top 3 team in the nation and I could see a team that finishes unranked. And it's really, it's that level of volatility that we sort of, do you feel that way at all? I know I sort of diverted the conversation.
I think it's possible. And, the fact that Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant were pursued by other programs is no shock. I mean, they indicated that in the spring. I mean, of course, but the fact is that, Michigan, they also, Will Johnson indicated that Michigan's NIL support really stepped up, and that's been their whole plan all along is NIL retention, going towards retention, not, going after unproven players. So they're looking to retain their best players, and they, invest their resources accordingly. So they want to go after, their own guys. They want to keep their own guys, which makes a lot of sense, and it's worked really well for them. I mean, they've done a good job with player retention ever since they, invited or brought in this new staff. Harbaugh changed out and, brought in a younger staff in 2021 because they were hemorrhaging, talent before then. And ever since then, they really haven't. They've lost, a player here and there. Like Sabb is probably the most obvious example, but again, they've invested their resources in, especially in this NIL era, in their own talent, the players that have proven themselves, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they put a wall around their guys, which they're very good at. Michigan knows how to put up a wall, right. And they said you're not touching our guys. You're not doing it. And I think. Let's get into this for 5 or so, and then we'll transition out into how Michigan looks in the new look Big Ten. I think, given that so much of Michigan's emphasis, at least publicly stated, and what we can see is exactly what you're talking about, right, Reiner? Holding on to guys, finding guys who fit this, that, and the other. The transformational, not transactional in NIL. So they say, of course, they are paying play, like as all the schools are. They are paying players, but it's not exactly pay for play. They're not promising spots, and at least to my understanding. But even with that said, I think Michigan's got to be pretty pleased to, at this point, if you look at the 24/7 sports composite rankings, 2025 class list rankings, they're 12th in the nation. And now I could see some saying, well, I mean, they're coming off a national championship. Damn straight they better be, right? Like you better be near the top 10. But Michigan, even under Jim Harbaugh, even when it was, flying, I don't know that they ever finished with the top 10 class. Maybe 10th.
No. They finished 5th in 2017.
In 2017. Okay, the one class. Yeah. But other than that, they did not, correct? They had maybe an 11th, maybe a 12th. They lived in the mid-teens, is my point. It was not his last year. They were 21st.
Yeah,
it's not out of the question that they were somewhere between 12 and 21. And I am of the opinion that it is a damn good job by Sharon and company. I mean, Ron Bellamy is the only coach in the same position as last year. They hired 6 new coaches. They elevated 5, or 6 new staffers and elevated 5, counting strength and conditioning. And Ron Bellamy's the only one. That's a ton of turnover. That's a lot of movement for them to pull in this level of class, and they're number 12 overall. Their average grade on a per recruit basis is 8th. I mean, this is we were hard. I'm going to be hard on people when I see the need to be, and I'm going to give flowers when I see the need to be. I was pretty tough on Sharon early on. There was no movement. There was nothing, and he was preaching patience. I think they landed 9 recruits in the month of June, the most in on record. They had a hell of a month to go from 55. I think they got up as high as 9 or 10. Now they're sitting at 12.
Yeah, I mean, I think they obviously did well during that period. I mean, I would say that again, this is we have to see it play out over the course of the season before we make any kind of broad conclusion. I've learned that covering this sport for the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, it's like it's one of those things where, I mean, circumstances could change. I mean, especially depending on how Michigan performs this season. I think a lot of, the recruits, I mean, are going to be watching, more so than they probably would, just because this is the first year under Sharon Moore. So they're going to see how Michigan performs during the fall. And if they, meet or exceed expectations, I mean, they could conceivably add to it, but they could also potentially lose, depending on how things shake out this year. The other thing is, like, you have to also look at, positions. I mean, they're going to, I think, because of Wink Martindale's defense, they're going to recruit well especially on defense, but in the secondary, and they've historically recruited very well at the pass rushing position because they've had a track record of getting those guys to the NFL.
Well, I mean, neither of those things are a drawback, right?
That's not a drawback, but it shows, like, that's how you can inflate your recruiting ranking, though, is like you're going to get certain guys at those specific positions that are higher. But like, you're still not recruiting top level players at receiver.
Skill position. Well, so they may get one. They may get one.
Yeah, maybe.
Marsh. And to your point, let's go very quickly. Let's go through it. Their top ranked recruit, Ivan Taylor, son of Ike Taylor, defensive back, top 50 player in the nation. Right. Kanewell Winston, out of the DMV, out of Gonzaga in Washington, D.C., top 60 player, a safety. Nathaniel Marshall, Nate Marshall, from Oak Park, Illinois, just outside Chicago, defensive edge or edge. Then you got Andrew Owish, the tight end from Center Valley, Pennsylvania. Another Chicago area native, Jalen Williams from Palatine. Had to take a couple Uber trips up to Palatine when I was living out there. And then Avery Gock, an offensive tackle in the trenches. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top 200 players in this. And I can't forget quarterback Carter Smith. So 7 top 200 guys. And to your point, it's all the places we know Michigan is good right now. Defensive line, secondary, tight end, and I guess in quarterback they've always prioritized a quarterback recruit.
But look at what it took for Michigan to win the national championship. They got a 5-star quarterback, and that's the difference. I mean, so Michigan historically has been like a 9-3, anywhere between an 8-4 and 10-2 program.
Carter Smith, very quickly, 4-star quarterback.
Yeah, and so he's a good quarterback, but not they've recruited plenty of 4-star. I mean, Dylan McCaffrey, Brandon Peters, those guys in the past. So I mean, what I'm saying is that they need that kind of elite playmaker on offense, and I don't know if they are getting that guy consistently, class in and class out. And again, the one time they did get that player with J.J. McCarthy, it led to a national championship. So those are the things. Like, Michigan historically always recruits great pass rushers. That's not good. That's not a surprise. So getting Nate Marshall or whatever, is not a big deal as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
that's fair. I would say Jacob Washington, a receiver who's ranked right around 250, pretty good. It's from out of
I learned about Jacob Washington, and they used Nico Collins as an example, which is funny because again, Nico Collins, what
alma mater, right?
Which one?
Is this Ron Bellamy's alma mater?
Ron Bellamy's alma mater, yeah. Archbishop Shaw. He plays for Ron Bellamy's former coach, and that same coach got him a Maureen Walker at Ponchatoula.
Ponchatoula, yeah.
So I mean, like the New Orleans connection is a very good one because
Philip,
the other talent there. I mean, it's an excellent recruiting area. So I mean, it's really beneficial that Ron Bellamy is connected there because historically, obviously, I mean, New Orleans has been a great place for. I mean, Ed Reed is from there. I mean,
there's no shortage of athletes.
Yeah,
no doubt. Quickly, Philip Wright, the other receiver in this class, is from DeHestron, which is another suburb of New Orleans. All right, good work. Time to break. On the other side, that's where we will discuss, does Michigan football four-peat? Don't go anywhere. This is Hail Yes. All right, Reiner, you are a company man, and you filled out your USA Today All Big Ten team as well, because it was our job. So, with that being said, let's just get it out there. Do I hear 4 straight Big Ten championships for Michigan football this year? Yes or no?
I don't believe so. I picked Oregon to actually in his first year to win the Big Ten. I think they're going to be strong top to bottom. I have a lot of faith in Dan Lanning. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's probably going to be the next kind of star coach and the same level of maybe eventually Kirby Smart, that kind of level. I mean, Kirby Smart's former defensive coordinator anyway. And so, so far he's built a really well-rounded program. They're strong offensively. They're strong defensively. Play pretty sound fundamental football. I like Oregon, and I like where they're going.
Yeah, what I can't get past, Dante Moore is their backup, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was seen as like like you can start as a true freshman, Power 5, 3-year potential NFL guy, and he's there like they're not even considering him because Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman favorite. No, you're right. I don't have Oregon winning it, but I also don't have Michigan winning it either. Which would leave probably the third team I think everybody thinks of in the top of this new look Big Ten that we should have gone over. Now has 18 teams officially. Oregon part of it, Washington part of it, USC and UCLA, all now Big Ten teams. But I think it's going to be one of the old guard, Ohio State. Who wins it all. And I know there is a bit of a question mark with Will Howard at quarterback, Kansas State transfer, because it's just such a different style than really last year. And really what they've done in the past. But there's just too much talent. I just think Ohio State is the most talented team in the nation. Denzel Burke and Caleb Downs in the secondary. You got JT with the last name who I can never pronounce. Can you say it for me? What is it? Tuiomala or something? Yeah, something. You know him. He's been there for 7 years and he gets 10 sacks a year. They got a couple offensive linemen. Donovan Jackson is back for a 94th season. Emeka Egbuka still there. By the way, they added Quinshawn Judkins, who was like projected as the SEC Offensive Player of the Year last year. To add the most electric running back in the portal and the best second defensive back in the portal, on top of a team that lives with 4 and 5 stars, they get Michigan at home. I just think eventually the dam's going to break, right? Like Michigan will not win every game every year, and so I like where Ohio State is set up right now. Do you, Andrew?
Well, it's interesting too. Like, as you were saying that, like, oh yeah, Michigan or Ohio State gets Michigan at home, right? Well, yeah, that's a huge advantage. They theoretically could beat Michigan and then have to go beat Oregon to win the Big Ten.
Yep.
And still make the playoff, even if they lose. That's the new Big Ten we're living in now. I feel like it's a lot different conversation. It's much more NFL playoffs now than it's ever been before, where you're not saying, okay, who's got the best team, who's plays who at home. That used to be kind of the bread and butter of the who's going to win the Big Ten conference now. Well, these days, it's a completely different conversation because you almost have to go through these different levels of it, and there's so many unknowns, and it's not based on the East versus West anymore. So you don't know, if Michigan makes it out over Ohio State, they're going to play Wisconsin. Worst case scenario. It's just such a different world now, and until we see it, we're not going to really know what to think of it.
And it's a lot of schedule math when you got 18 teams in it, right? Which I think, Reiner, I'm going to feed this right back to you, and you'll say where you picked Michigan and why, and then I will as well. And I think the schedule had a lot to do with it. But I mean, looking at, Ohio State, they've got to play Iowa, which, it's at home, but that's a tough game. Then they go on the road to Oregon, tough game. At Penn State, tough game. Michigan home. That's 4 legit, very difficult games. So maybe I should have looked at that a little closer. Who knows? But then, when you do Oregon's got to go to Michigan. They've got. Let me do some really good live radio. And
while you're looking this up, me and some of the editors were going through it the other day. Honestly, the Michigan football schedule looks super tough on paper, but when you start going through it, it's almost tough to imagine them not going 9-3, especially if Michigan goes 9-3, I would wager that they are probably right around 11 or 12 and most likely in the playoff because, say coin flip Texas, either way, that's quote unquote a good loss, right? USC at home is not maybe as tough as we thought it was. Washington is a complete rebuild. You have Michigan State at home, not like Michigan State's going to be that good anyways. You have Oregon at home. So basically you have to win or you can't lose more than 2 of the Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Texas, and Washington, right? Yeah. You have to basically go 3-2 in those games.
I think a lot of people, Washington feels like a layup right now, but you never know. Yeah. So I'm not really counting that. And I think
I don't know. Washington, it could be, but that place is tough to play. And, Michigan historically has not done very well going to other time zones. But Michigan State hasn't done well either. Most Big Ten schools don't go well.
They don't travel west well. Yeah, it's a great point.
But if you looked at that schedule last year when Kalen DeBoer was there, and when, before and midway through last year when you thought USC and Lincoln Riley might be really rolling, it's not as much of a punch as we maybe initially would have thought.
We're also underselling USC from the defensive standpoint because Danton Lynn is really a good defensive coordinator. He runs basically the similar, scheme as Michigan does, and so I think it's going to be interesting to see how much progress they make. And it could
getting rid of Alex Grinch is the biggest upgrade any team made in the nation. I mean that was the worst.
Just to be, to put it in a gambling perspective, if that game was on the board right now, Michigan at home, 3:30 start against USC, fourth week of the year, 6.5 at least.
I was going to say, 6.5 to.
So that's a game on 9. Paper you should win.
Yeah, I like Michigan by a touchdown there.
I'm actually curious. USC could be actually tough because again, Danton Lynn coached with the Ravens, and so he's going to be a little bit aware of the Ravens scheme. Can really give some pointers to Lincoln Riley. Riley's a good, whatever you want to say about him, he can scheme up some offense. So I'm a little bit leery about that game. I think that's going to be a little bit more challenging than other people think.
And what we are all guilty of is what Michigan better not be guilty of. Mm-hmm. They open up with Fresno State. If they think that they're just going to walk over Fresno State, I got news for you. They're not. They are not.
No,
that is a good team. That is a good team. They added some real talent. They added a 5-star edge from USC. He was like the number 2 player in the nation last year. In recruit. Yeah. Come on,
they're a good team.
They got Mikey Keene. They got this coaching thing they got to work out because
that's what I was going to mention. They just had the coaching shakeup, which maybe would be the only down because otherwise that's a spoiler game written all over it, or at least not sure. if nothing else.
Cover for under and Fresno State. I'm telling you.
But there's several of those games that are actually. There are factors that really don't work in Michigan's favor. Again, people don't need to be ignoring the USC game. I think, that could actually be challenging based on certain circumstances.
But do you see what I'm saying, Reiner, about where the way the schedule works out now and with the 12-team playoff, I don't see Michigan losing 3 of those 5 games because I think Washington, like you said, is a tougher game than Michigan State. You have Northwestern at home, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, and Arkansas State aren't really games you have to worry about. So essentially, you have to go 3-2 against Texas, USC, Washington, Ohio State, and Oregon.
Yeah.
3-2.
But here's my thought. So you think if they go 2-3, if they go 9-3 overall, I don't know that they make the playoff.
With a win over Texas, because then you'd have a win over Texas.
Well, no. Say the losses
Ohio
are
State.
Those are the 3 losses. I'm saying if Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State are your 3 losses, and you're 9-3. Yeah, you beat Washington, and yeah, you beat. Whoever else this
USC.
game is where USC.
You're talking about. Those are Texas, Oregon. Those are 3
top 5 teams.
Top teams. So those are 3. So there's no margin for error. You can't lose.
I'm saying if you lose all of them, Michigan might lose their argument. I mean, you might be on the outside of the playoff. Like, where's your leg to stand on? Like, you just played all these playoff teams, 2 of them at home. I'm just saying if those are the 3 games you lose.
But if they go 3-2 in those games, they're probably going to finish the year 10-2, and they're easily in.
Oh yeah. Then
even if they beat USC, Washington, and one of Ohio State, Oregon, or Texas, they're locked. So that's 3-2 of that. If you put in NFL perspectives, that's manageable.
Yeah, 3-2 and they're in 2-3, and I could see it either way.
It's very thin margin of error, though. I mean, because again. You're assuming that like just those 3 losses, but again, those other games could also pose a lot of trouble too.
This is why I thought the 18 playoff was the way to go, though, because 12. If Michigan goes 10-2, they deserve to be in with that schedule. If they go, 2-3 in those games and beat USC and Washington, and they're 9-3. But they still probably have a better case than a lot of other teams. But they're going to get in the playoff, and that's what I don't know if that's.
I think you lose your case. I think you lose your case, and I'm saying
it's like Ohio State a couple of years ago. Remember when Ohio State was pushing when they were 10-2 and they really thought they should be in the playoff? I can't remember what season this was, and they were like really
Alabama. I remember 11-2 Alabama dying to get in the playoff.
And Ohio State was on the edge once too, and they had that bad loss. I feel like that's kind of where Michigan could be if they, hey, you didn't take care of business, but you still might be right on that line, Yeah.
No, I think they're right in. So Reiner, to bring this full circle, where do you have Michigan finishing in the Big Ten?
I have them finishing 4th behind Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. Penn State's got a really easy schedule this year. That's why Michigan doesn't. They have a very tough schedule. They don't have the layups that they have in September the last couple of years. And, I think with the quarterback situation being what it is, it's going to be hard to get through that. Not to mention they don't have the same depth that they have as they did last year. And, this is a grind of a schedule. More so than in other times. They're not going to be able to rest their starters all 4 quarters in September. So, the final 2 quarters or the final quarter or whatever, they're going to have to probably play till the final snap of the game. And so that's my reasoning for that.
Yeah, you remember Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy going into November had played combined it was 8 snaps in the 4th quarter in November. It was just like I'm with you for sure. And while you mention the quarterback, Sharon Moore was on 97.1 The Ticket today. And I just want to read, I was writing down a few things he said. He was asked about the quarterback job, and he said, it's in a great place now, a great place in the future. We've got guys who can help us win at a high level. We're excited for fall camp. Every year is different. We will see if this is asking when they want to name a starter. Every year is different. We will see if it's right before game 1 or before game 2. We will take our time to make sure we got the best one. So sounds like they could run the quarterback competition later into the fall, just to your point. And to your other point about just those 4th quarters and the wear and tear on the bodies. I was just talking when I was with Mason and KG They are both trimming down. Mason is listed at 319. He wants to play this year at 310. Kenneth Grant is listed in the mid 340s. He's up to 351 right now. He said he wants to play at 335, and they're both expecting more snaps. They're both expecting to be on the field more, and so they just want to be able to move around more. And I think that will be sort of a common theme. I have Michigan third, simply based on I cannot put them lower than that. I know Penn State's got an easier schedule. I might end up being wrong because of that, but Michigan's a better football team than Penn State, and so I'm putting them ahead of Penn State. I don't care about the actual order. I was ranking like the way I saw the teams, like who I think is the best team and the next best team, and then we'll see how it shakes out from there. But I got Ohio State number 1, Oregon 2, Michigan 3, Penn State 4, and Iowa 5. Andrew, did you have? I think you.
I did not. No, I didn't have a vote, but I was going to ask Reiner. Did that quote from Sharon about the quarterback competition could go into the first game or the second game? Does that remind you of anyone in particular?
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, again, everything he does is very much connected to Jim Harbaugh. I'd like to see Sharon Moore finally do something different from Jim Harbaugh and kind of put his stamp on the program, because right now it just seems like he's just copying the script from Jim Harbaugh. I mean, even the Big Ten Media Day
seniors
representatives who he sent, I mean, they're all seniors, but they're not primetime players because this is not a senior-laden roster filled with senior stars. And so the biggest names that you want to hear from, Colston Loveland, Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, those players are not invited to Big Ten Media Days because they're not seniors. And I don't think that's makes much sense. I mean, when you have Max Bredesen, no offense to Max Bredesen, but I mean, he's a player that really 95% of probably the common Michigan fan really doesn't know of. And he's a representative. And then you have, Makari Page, who's not a very familiar name. In fact, he's the lesser of the two safeties when Ron Moore, just because he's injured, will not be speaking. And so it just, I don't know. I think it's.
I told someone yesterday quickly that Makari Page was going down. They're like, I thought he was hurt. Yeah. I was like, no, that's Rod Moore.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. And so I think that most people don't even know, again, some of these players. And, these are the people who are representing Michigan at this. And, who are the people in Michigan's locker room that they tend to listen to? They're probably listening to Alex Orji. They're probably listening to Will Johnson. They're probably listening to.
I understand them not sending Orji. That was not on the table.
I understand that. I mean, because he's in a quarterback competition. But what I'm saying is that these are the most prominent players on Michigan's roster, and they're the ones who probably deserve to be go to Big Ten Media Days. And so this was a point where Sharon Moore could have actually deviated from what Jim Harbaugh did, but he chose not to and continued to trot out the seniors. And it's just indicative, again, of a coach who has yet to be able to put his own stamp on the program.
Yeah. And I guess he might be thinking, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I do tend to lean towards you. You do want to have your own flavor. And I don't know if you saw, he's wearing the Skinny M hat.
Yeah, I know.
You see?
Exactly, yeah.
He's wearing the same Skinny M Jim Harbaugh hat.
And he had the thick M, when he was the before. Yeah. So now
he went to the Skinny M and that goes back to Bo Schembechler. Bo Schembechler wore the Skinny M hat, and it is seen as a tradition within the Michigan football program, as is the seniors being. And so just want to make sure we're speaking just from both sides of it. But who knows? I mean, time will tell if Sharon Moore is going to be more.
Brady Hoke didn't wear a hat. I don't think Lloyd Carr wore a hat.
Does anyone want to be Brady Hoke?
Yeah, but
I mean, he didn't wear a headset.
I don't think Lloyd Carr wore a hat, and he coached under Bo Schembechler.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah.
No. All right. Well, we'll get back to the rest of it.
Lloyd Carr did wear a hat, but it was like it was a thick M.
Who?
Yeah. So he deviated.
Well, Lloyd did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, in my childhood recesses in my memory, he has a hat on, but I couldn't swear on it.
I couldn't remember. Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it. Reiner's got to get down to Indy. Andrew's got to edit the paper, and I have to go get a haircut. So for both of them, for our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, our audio engineer, Robin Chan, that's the whole team right now. This will do it. We'll talk to you next time. This is Hail Yes.